The coffee shop on Miller Street wasn't fancy. It had wobbly tables, mismatched chairs, and a bathroom door that never quite closed properly. But it was quiet, and the coffee was cheap, which was all Maya really cared about. Every Tuesday and Thursday evening, she'd claim the corner table near the window, order a black coffee, and lose herself in whatever book she was reading that week. She liked being invisible. In a college town full of loud students and even louder opinions, Maya had perfected the art of blending into the background. Her dark hair usually pulled back in a simple ponytail, earbuds always in, eyes always down. She'd learned that if you looked busy enough, people generally left you alone. That's why Derek confused her so much. He simply refused to take the hint. The first time he approached her table, she'd been deep into a novel about the history of lighthouses. She didn't even notice him standing there until his shadow fell across her page. "Hey, I see you here all the time," he said, grinning like they were old friends. "I'm Derek. I run the open mic nights next door at the community center." Maya pulled out one earbud. "That's nice. You should come sometime. Tonight, actually. We've got some really talented people performing. Singers, poets, even a guy who does magic tricks. It's super chill." She gave him the polite smile she'd practiced for situations exactly like this. "Thanks, but I'm not really interested." Derek didn't seem bothered by the rejection. "No worries. But hey, the invitation's always open. Every Thursday night, 7 o'clock. Free coffee, too, which I know is important since you're always here drinking it." He walked away before she could respond, leaving her slightly annoyed but also a little amused. At least he hadn't tried to sit down and have a whole conversation. But Derek didn't give up. The next Thursday, he waved at her through the coffee shop window as he walked past. The Thursday after that, he popped his head in and said, "Still haven't seen you at open mic. We had a woman play the accordion last week. It was actually kind of amazing." Maya started to wonder if ignoring him would ever actually work. By the 5th week, she'd begun to expect his friendly interruptions. They became part of her Thursday routine, like the bitter coffee and the comfortable chair. He'd make his pitch, she'd politely decline, and they'd both go about their evenings. There was something almost comforting about the predictability of it. Then one Thursday evening in late September, everything shifted. Maya had her library science textbook open on the table, but she wasn't really reading it. Her mind kept wandering, and she'd been staring at the same paragraph for 10 minutes. Without thinking, she'd pulled an old piano exercise book from her bag and set it on the table while looking for a pen. She didn't even realize it was there until Derek walked in, and his eyes landed on it immediately. "Wait, you play piano?" His voice had genuine excitement in it, not the pushy enthusiasm from before. "That's incredible. We've been trying to get a pianist to perform for months. The community center just got an old upright donated last week." Maya's hand moved to cover the book, but it was too late. "I don't really play anymore, but you used to, right?" "That's close enough." Derek pulled out the chair across from her without asking. His energy completely different now. "Look, I'm not trying to pressure you or anything, but the whole point of open mic is that it's just for fun. Nobody's getting paid. Nobody's competing for anything. People just share what they love. No pressure, no judgment, just for fun." The words felt strange to Maya, like hearing a familiar song in a foreign language. "I'm really not interested," she said, more firmly this time. Derek raised his hands in surrender. Okay. I hear you. But would you at least come watch? Not to perform, just to see what it's like? I promise it's not scary. Last week, someone read a poem about their cat. The week before, a guy played ukulele and forgot half the words to his own song. Everyone just laughed with him, not at him. It's that kind of space. Maya found herself considering it, which surprised her. Maybe it was because he'd finally stopped pushing her to perform. Maybe it was because 6 weeks of his persistent friendliness had worn down her defenses. Or maybe it was because some tiny part of her, a part she'd buried deep 7 years ago, was curious. "Just to watch," she said finally. Derek's face lit up. "That's all I'm asking. This Thursday, 7 o'clock. I'll save you a seat." That Thursday, Maya almost didn't go. She stood outside the community center for a full 5 minutes, listening to the muffled sounds of guitar music from inside, considering just going home. But Derek had seen her through the window and was already opening the door, waving her in with such genuine warmth that turning around felt impossible. The room was smaller than she expected. Maybe 40 folding chairs arranged in rows, about half of them filled with people of all ages. A tiny stage at the front held a microphone, a stool, and that upright piano Derek had mentioned. It was old and probably out of tune, with scratches on its wooden surface that told stories of decades of use. Maya felt her chest tighten just looking at it. "Come on, I saved you a spot," Derek said, leading her to a seat in the back row. "Perfect view, easy exit if you need to leave early. No pressure." As the performances began, Maya tried to focus on the singers and poets, but her eyes kept drifting back to that piano. Nobody played it that night. It sat there like a question she couldn't answer, waiting patiently in the corner of the stage. A college student sang an original song about missing her hometown. An older man read a funny story about his first job. A teenage boy played guitar while his friend attempted to beatbox. Some performances were polished, others were rough around the edges, but the audience clapped warmly for everyone. Derek was right about one thing. There was no judgment here, just support. During a particularly emotional poem about someone's grandmother, Maya realized her hands were moving. Her fingers were pressing invisible keys on her lap, muscle memory playing along to rhythms only she could hear. She'd been doing it unconsciously, the way you might hum along to a song without realizing it. When she looked down and saw her own fingers moving, something stirred inside her chest. It felt like recognition, like running into an old friend you'd been avoiding for years. After the last performer finished, Derek came over with a bottle of water. "So what did you think?" "It was nice," Maya said, and she meant it. "Really nice. You should perform next week. Or the week after. Or whenever. No rush." Maya stood to leave, slinging her bag over her shoulder. "Derek, I haven't played piano in a very long time. I'm not sure I remember how." "That's the beautiful thing about it being just for fun," he said, walking her to the door. "You can't really mess up something that doesn't matter." As Maya walked home that night, his words echoed in her head. Something that doesn't matter. Piano had always mattered so much, too much. What would it feel like if it didn't? What would it feel like to play without the weight of the world watching? She didn't have an answer. But for the first time in 7 years, she found herself wondering. The next morning, Maya woke up with a melody in her head. It was something simple, something from childhood before everything got complicated. She couldn't remember the name of the piece, but her fingers remembered. As she made coffee in her tiny apartment, her right hand tapped the melody against the counter without her even thinking about it. It had been happening more lately. These little moments where music crept back into her life. A rhythm in her walk matching the beat of a song she'd once known. Her foot tapping along to the cafe radio when she thought no one was watching. Dreams where she sat at a piano and played without fear, without anyone listening, without anything at stake. When Thursday came around again, Maya told herself she wasn't going to the open mic. She had studying to do, papers to write, a shift at the bookstore the next morning, all perfectly valid reasons to stay home. But at 6:45, she found herself putting on her jacket. At 6:55, she was walking down Miller Street. And at exactly 7 o'clock, she was slipping into that same back row seat at the community center. Derek noticed her immediately and gave her a thumbs up from where he stood near the stage. Maya nodded back, surprised by how glad she was to be there. Tonight, someone finally played that upright piano. A woman in her 50s sat down and played a simple jazz piece, making mistakes here and there but smiling the whole time. The audience loved it, and Maya sat in the back row with her hands in her lap, fingers moving silently along to every note, playing a shadow version of a song only she could hear. Maya's phone buzzed during her lunch break at the bookstore. Her sister's name flashed on the screen. Lisa always seemed to call at the worst times. Or maybe there was never really a good time for their conversations anymore. "Hey," Maya answered, wedging the phone between her shoulder and ear while she restocked the fiction section. "Mom asked about you again," Lisa said, skipping any greeting. "She wants to know if you're coming home for Thanksgiving." Maya felt that familiar tightness in her chest. "I haven't decided yet." She also asked if you're playing again. There was a pause. "Are you?" Maya's hand froze on a book spine. "Why would you think that?" "Because you sound different lately, I don't know, less flat." It was strange how well her sister could still read her, even over the phone, even after years of carefully constructed distance. Maya set down the books and moved to the back room where she could talk privately. "I went to an open mic night," she admitted. "Just to watch. There was a piano there." Lisa was quiet for a moment. And nothing. "I just watched." But Lisa, people were playing just for fun, making mistakes and laughing about it. Nobody cared about perfect technique or proper posture or any of that stuff. That must have been weird for you to see. It was, Maya said softly. It was really weird. After they hung up, Maya found herself thinking about things she'd tried hard not to think about for 7 years. Memories she'd locked away in a box labeled "Do Not Open" were starting to leak out, and she wasn't sure if she wanted to stop them anymore. That night, alone in her apartment, Maya let herself remember. She'd been 16 when she won the National Youth Piano Competition. Her parents had cried. Her teacher, Mrs. Rodriguez, had hugged her so tight Maya could barely breathe. The local newspaper ran a story with her photo, hands poised over the keys, looking confident and focused. Inside, she'd been terrified the entire time. What nobody knew was that the pressure had started long before that win. Piano lessons at age 5 had been fun, full of simple songs and gold star stickers. By age 8, it was 2 hours of practice every day. By 12, it was 4 hours. By 15, she'd stopped having friends outside of piano. She'd stopped having hobbies. She'd stopped having anything that wasn't piano. "You have a gift," everyone kept telling her. "You can't waste it." The gift never felt like a gift. It felt like a responsibility she'd never asked for, growing heavier with every competition, every performance, every expectation. After the national win, things got worse. Her teacher started talking about conservatories, about a professional career, about competing internationally. Her parents looked at her like she was made of glass and gold, something precious and fragile that might break if they didn't handle her exactly right. Maya stopped sleeping well. She'd dream about forgetting pieces mid-performance, about her fingers freezing on the keys, about disappointing everyone who believed in her. Then came the spring recital when she was 17. It was supposed to be a showcase for a famous instructor visiting from New York, someone who could open doors to the best music schools in the country. The recital hall was packed. Her parents sat in the front row. Mrs. Rodriguez stood in the wings, giving her encouraging nods. Maya walked onto the stage in a blue dress her mother had bought specially for the occasion. She sat at the grand piano. She placed her hands on the keys. And then her mind went completely blank. She couldn't remember the opening notes of the piece she'd practiced 10,000 times. Her hands wouldn't move. The silence in the hall became deafening. She could feel hundreds of eyes on her, waiting, watching, judging. She sat there for what felt like an hour but was probably only 30 seconds. Then she stood up, walked off the stage, and didn't stop walking until she reached the parking lot. She never explained what happened. Not really. How could she explain that her brain had simply given up? That the pressure had finally crushed something inside her that couldn't be uncrushed? Her parents were worried, then frustrated, then disappointed. Mrs. Rodriguez kept calling, trying to convince her it was just nerves, that everyone has bad days, that she couldn't throw away her future over one mistake. But it wasn't one mistake. It was years of mistakes. The mistake of letting piano become everything. The mistake of measuring her worth by how well she could perform. The mistake of forgetting that music was supposed to be something beautiful, not something that gave you panic attacks. Maya quit everything. No more lessons, no more competitions, no more practicing. She sold her keyboard and didn't look back. She went to college, chose a quiet major that had nothing to do with performance or pressure. She built a small, safe life where nobody expected anything extraordinary from her, and she told herself she was happy. Maya shook her head, pulling herself back to the present. She was sitting on her apartment floor, tears on her cheeks that she hadn't realized were falling. The memories had been more vivid than she'd expected, more painful. But something was different this time. The pain felt older somehow, like a scar instead of an open wound. Over the next few weeks, Maya kept going to the open mic nights. She told herself it was just something to do on Thursday evenings, a way to get out of her apartment. But really, she was watching that piano. She watched a teenager play a clumsy version of a pop song. She watched an elderly man play classical pieces with arthritic hands that stumbled over the keys. She watched the 50-year-old woman come back and play jazz again. Better this time, more confident. And every single person looked happy. Not perfect, just happy. Derek noticed her pattern. After the 3rd week, he sat down next to her during intermission. "You know what I love about this place?" he said, not looking at her, just watching the stage. "Nobody here is trying to be the best. They're just trying to be themselves. Maya nodded, not trusting herself to speak. There's this thing that happens with hobbies, Derek continued. When you're a kid, you do things because they're fun. Then somewhere along the way, adults convince you that if you're good at something, you have to be great at it. And if you're great at it, you have to make it your whole life. We forget that it's okay to just enjoy things. Did someone tell you to say this to me? Maya asked, half joking. Derek laughed. No, I'm just rambling. I do that sometimes. My friends say I have no filter. But his words stayed with Maya long after she went home that night. Maybe that was her problem. She'd forgotten how to just enjoy things. Everything had to matter, had to mean something, had to be perfect or not at all. The next Thursday, Derek made an announcement that made Maya's stomach drop. So, exciting news, he said to the audience. We're doing something special next month. An all-piano night, just pianists all evening. I know we've got some talented players in this community, and I'd love to showcase that. He looked directly at Maya when he said it, giving her an encouraging smile. After the show, Maya packed up her things quickly, trying to leave before Derek could corner her about performing, but he caught up with her in the parking lot. I know what you're thinking, he said. You don't, actually. You're thinking I'm pressuring you. But I'm not. I just think you'd be amazing, that's all. You've got that look. What look? Maya asked, annoyed now. The look of someone who misses something but won't admit it? Maya turned to face him fully. Derek, you don't know anything about me. You're right, he said, raising his hands. I don't, and I'm sorry if I overstepped. I just get excited about this stuff. My whole thing is trying to create a space where people can rediscover joy in things. Sometimes I push too hard. His genuine apology softened her anger a little. I appreciate what you're trying to do here. Really, I do. But playing piano isn't just a fun hobby I gave up. It's complicated. Fair enough, Derek said. But if you ever want to talk about it, or if you ever change your mind, the offer stands. No judgment either way. As Maya drove home, she realized she was gripping the steering wheel so tight her knuckles were white. Derek's casual comments about piano being just for fun kept echoing in her head. He had no idea what he was asking of her. No idea about the years of pressure, the breakdown, the shame of walking away from something everyone said she was born to do. But a tiny voice in the back of her mind whispered something she didn't want to acknowledge. What if he was right? What if piano could be different now? What if she could play without all the weight she'd been carrying? Maya pulled into her apartment parking lot and sat in the car for a long time, staring at her hands on the wheel. These same hands had won awards. These same hands had frozen on stage. These same hands hadn't touched a piano in 7 years. What would happen if they did? The community center smelled like old wood and lemon cleaner. Maya stood outside the main room on a Tuesday afternoon, 3 days after Derek's announcement about the piano night. The building was supposed to be closed, but she'd noticed that the janitor's car was always in the parking lot during the day. She tried the front door. Locked. She was about to leave when the door opened from the inside, and an elderly man with kind eyes looked at her curiously. We're closed today, miss. Open mic isn't until Thursday. I know, Maya said, then hesitated. I was just wondering if I could maybe come in for a few minutes. To see the piano. The man studied her face for a moment, then stepped aside. Come on in. Name's Henry Patterson, but everyone calls me Mr. Patterson. Been keeping this place clean for about 15 years now. I'm Maya. Thank you for letting me in. The piano's all yours, he said, gesturing toward the stage. I'll be in the back room if you need anything. Door's open if you want to leave. Maya walked slowly toward the stage, her footsteps echoing in the empty room. The upright piano sat there waiting, looking smaller without an audience around it. She climbed the 3 steps onto the stage and stood in front of the bench, not sitting, just looking. The keys were yellowed with age. Someone had carved initials into the side of the bench. It wasn't a fancy instrument, nothing like the grand pianos she'd played in competition halls. It was just a piano that had been played by countless hands over the years, each person leaving their invisible mark on it. Maya sat down but didn't touch the keys. She just stared at them, her hands resting in her lap. 15 minutes passed, then 30. She could hear Mr. Patterson moving around somewhere in the building, the distant sound of a vacuum cleaner, but mostly there was just silence and her own breathing. Finally, she lifted her right hand and pressed middle C. The note rang out, slightly out of tune, filling the empty room. She pressed it again, then again. It was just one note, but it felt monumental. She came back the next day, and the day after that. Mr. Patterson always let her in without asking questions, just gave her a nod and went about his work. Maya would sit at the piano for an hour, sometimes longer, gradually pressing more keys. A scale, a simple chord progression, nothing that resembled an actual song yet. On Friday, she played a melody with her right hand. Just 5 notes repeated over and over. It was something her grandmother used to hum while cooking, back before piano had become serious, before it had become everything. "That's pretty," Mr. Patterson said from the back of the room. Maya jumped, not realizing he'd been listening. "Sorry, I didn't mean to startle you," he said, walking closer with his mop and bucket. "Been listening to folks play that piano for years. You've got something special in those hands." Maya's fingers curled into her palms. "I'm really just messing around." Mr. Patterson leaned on his mop handle. "You know what I used to do before my arthritis got bad? I played saxophone. Jazz clubs, wedding bands, street corners, you name it. Played anywhere people would listen. Why did you stop?" "Doctor said my hands couldn't take it anymore. The pain got too bad." He smiled, but there was sadness in it. "I was angry for a long time. Felt like music was the only thing I was good at, and it got taken away from me." Maya nodded, understanding that feeling more than he knew. "But then I realized something," Mr. Patterson continued. "Music isn't about being good at it. It's about having a conversation. Sometimes you're talking to an audience, sure, but mostly you're talking to yourself, working through feelings, memories, moments. The music is just the language you're using." "I never thought about it that way," Maya said quietly. "That's because you probably spent a lot of time worrying about playing the right notes instead of saying what you needed to say." He picked up his mop bucket. "Anyway, I'll let you get back to it. You come here whenever you want. Place is always open for folks who need it." Maya sat at the piano for another hour after he left, thinking about what he'd said. A conversation. Not a performance, not a test, not a competition. Just a conversation between her and the music. She started playing the grandmother's melody again, but this time she added her left hand, creating a simple harmony. It wasn't perfect. Her fingers stumbled over notes she would have played flawlessly 8 years ago. But it sounded like something. It sounded like her. The next Thursday, Maya went to the open mic night as usual. She sat in her regular spot in the back row, but something felt different. She felt different. Derek caught her eye and waved. And she found herself waving back with something close to genuine warmth. Halfway through the evening, during the intermission, Maya overheard a conversation that made her stomach turn. Derek was talking to a young woman near the coffee table. "There's this girl who comes every week," he was saying. "I'm pretty sure she used to play piano. I've been trying to get her to perform for weeks now." "Maybe she's just shy," the woman said. "Nah, it's more than that. Classic stage fright, you know? She just needs a little push. Everyone gets nervous before their first time performing. Once she does it once, she'll realize it's not scary at all." Maya felt heat rise in her face. Stage fright. He'd reduced everything she'd been through, all the trauma and pressure and pain, to simple stage fright, like she was just some nervous beginner who needed encouragement. She stood up and left without saying goodbye to anyone. For the next 2 weeks, Maya didn't go back to the community center. Not to open mic nights, not during the day to play the piano. She ignored Derek's texts asking if she was okay. She avoided walking down Miller Street where she might run into him. She was angry, but underneath the anger was something else. Disappointment, maybe. She'd started to think that Derek understood, that the space he'd created was truly safe, but he saw her as a project, someone to fix, someone to push onto a stage so he could feel good about himself. Mr. Patterson noticed her absence too. On the 3rd week, he showed up at the bookstore where she worked. "Thought I might find you here," he said, browsing the music section near her register. "Haven't seen you around." "I've been busy," Maya said, not meeting his eyes. "That's fine. Nobody's keeping attendance." He picked up a book about jazz history, flipped through it. "Derek's been asking about you, though. Seems worried." "Derek doesn't understand anything." "Probably not," Mr. Patterson agreed. "But he means well. Sometimes people who've never been hurt don't realize how deep other people's wounds go. They think a Band-Aid will fix everything." Maya felt tears prick at her eyes. "He called what I have stage fright. Like it's something small and easy to get over." "Is that what it is?" "No," Maya said firmly. "It's years of pressure and expectations and feeling like I was only worth something if I could perform perfectly. It's freezing on stage in front of everyone and feeling like my entire future crumbled in 30 seconds. It's not stage fright. It's trauma. Mr. Patterson nodded slowly. Have you told him that? Why should I have to explain myself? You shouldn't have to, but sometimes people can't help you if they don't know what kind of help you need. He set down the book. For what it's worth, I think you should keep playing. Not for Derek, not for the open mic night, not for anyone else. Just for you. The piano's still there and it's not going anywhere. That conversation stayed with Maya for days. She thought about it during her classes, during her shifts at the bookstore, during the quiet moments before sleep. Mr. Patterson was right about one thing. She'd been playing for herself during those private sessions at the community center, and it had felt different. Better. Like she was reclaiming something that had been stolen from her. But the thought of performing, of being watched and judged, still made her chest tight with anxiety. On Thursday evening, Maya found herself walking toward the community center despite her plan to stay home. She told herself she was just going to tell Derek why she'd been avoiding him, to set him straight about what he'd said. But when she got there, she saw Derek through the window, setting up chairs and adjusting the microphone with his usual enthusiasm, and she remembered something important. He'd created this space where people could share their imperfect art without judgment. He'd been nothing but kind to her, even if he didn't fully understand her situation. Maybe it was time to help him understand. Maya took a deep breath and walked through the door. Derek's face lit up when he saw her. Maya, I was worried about you. Are you okay? Can we talk? She asked. Before everyone else gets here? Of course. Yeah, absolutely. He led her to a quiet corner, his expression shifting from happy to concerned. Did I do something wrong? Maya looked at him, at his genuine worry, and made a decision. It was time to stop hiding. Time to stop letting the past control everything. I need to tell you something, she said, about who I used to be, and why your invitation to play isn't as simple as you think. And then, for the first time since it all happened, Maya told her story to someone who wasn't family. She told Derek everything. Derek listened without interrupting. Maya told him about the competitions, the pressure, the national award that everyone treated like a golden ticket to her future. She told him about the 4-hour practice sessions, about losing friends, about her teacher's constant reminders that she couldn't waste her gift. She told him about the recital where she froze, about walking off stage, about the 7 years of silence that followed. When she finished, Derek looked down at his hands. I'm so sorry, Maya, I had no idea. How could you? Maya said, not unkindly. I never told you, but I should have been more careful. I just assumed. He stopped himself. That's the problem, isn't it? I assumed. I thought everyone's relationship with performance was like mine. Fun and exciting and maybe a little nerve-wracking, but ultimately positive. Most people's probably is, Maya admitted. I'm the exception, not the rule. Derek ran a hand through his hair, looking genuinely upset with himself. When I overheard you the other week when you heard me call it stage fright, that must have felt awful. It did. 'Cause it's not stage fright, Derek. Stage fright is being nervous before you go on. What I have is, she searched for the right words. It's like the difference between being afraid of dogs and being attacked by a dog. One is a normal fear, the other is trauma. That makes sense. Derek looked at her directly. Thank you for telling me. And I'm really sorry for being pushy. The piano night, the constant invitations, all of it. I was trying to be encouraging, but I was actually being harmful. Maya felt something loosen in her chest. A real apology, one that showed he understood. You weren't trying to be harmful. You created something good here. I've seen people get up on that stage and share things that clearly matter to them. That woman who plays jazz, the teenager with the guitar, even the guy who forgot his ukulele lyrics. They all looked happy. They did, Derek agreed. But happy looks different for everyone. I shouldn't have pushed my version of it onto you. They sat in silence for a moment. People were starting to arrive for the open mic night, filtering in through the front door, grabbing coffee from the table Derek had set up. Can I tell you something weird? Maya said suddenly. Please. I've been coming here during the day, playing the piano when no one's around. Mr. Patterson lets me in. Derek's eyebrows shot up. Really? That's amazing. And it feels different than it used to. When I play alone without anyone watching or judging, it's almost like therapy. Like I'm having a conversation with a younger version of myself, telling her it's going to be okay. That's beautiful. Derek said softly. But the thought of performing, of being on that stage with people watching, still terrifies me. I don't know if I'll ever be ready for that, Derek nodded. Then don't do it, seriously. The piano's there if you want it, but you don't owe anyone a performance. Not me, not the audience, nobody. Maya smiled. You know what's funny? Now that you're not pushing me to perform, I'm actually starting to think about it. Really? Maybe someday. She stood up. I should probably go. I just wanted to explain why I disappeared. I'm glad you did. And Maya, if you ever want to play during the day and want company, let me know. I'm a terrible musician, but I'm a decent listener. As Maya walked toward the door, she felt lighter than she had in weeks. The anger was gone, replaced by something that felt like possibility. Over the next month, Maya fell into a new routine. She'd visit the community center 3 or 4 times a week during the day, always when it was quiet. Sometimes Mr. Patterson would be there cleaning, humming along while she played. Sometimes Derek would show up during his lunch break and sit in the back row, reading a book while she worked through simple melodies. Neither of them made her feel watched. They just shared the space with her, letting her explore piano on her own terms. Maya started playing things she'd loved as a child, before the pressure started. Disney songs her mother used to sing, simple folk tunes her grandmother had taught her. Nothing impressive, nothing that would win competitions, but everything that made her feel connected to who she used to be. One afternoon, Derek brought his laptop and worked while she played. During a break, he looked up and said, I have to tell you something, and I don't want you to feel pressured by it. Maya tensed slightly. Okay. My younger brother Tyler, he played baseball all through high school. He was really good, got recruited by college scouts, the whole thing. But the pressure got to him. He started having panic attacks before games. Eventually, he quit right before senior year. What happened to him? He's happy now. Works as a physical therapist, plays recreational softball on weekends. But for years, I didn't understand why he walked away from something he was so talented at. I thought he just gave up. Derek closed his laptop. Talking to you, hearing your story, it helped me understand what he went through. I called him last week and apologized for not getting it at the time. How did he react? He laughed and said it was about time I figured it out. Derek smiled. But seriously, thank you. You helped me be a better brother, even if it's 7 years too late. Maya felt tears prick her eyes. I'm glad something good came from all this. They sat together in comfortable silence, and Maya realized something important. She'd spent 7 years avoiding piano because she associated it with pain. But here, in this worn-down community center with its out-of-tune upright and its kind people, she was building new associations. Better ones. 2 weeks before the all-piano night Derek had announced, Maya made a decision. She was at the community center on a Wednesday afternoon, playing a simple arrangement of a folk song, when she realized she wanted to share it. Not because she had to, not because anyone expected it, but because the song was beautiful and it deserved to be heard. She called Derek that evening. I want to play at the piano night, she said without preamble. There was a pause. Are you sure? Because there's absolutely no pressure, I'm sure. But I have conditions. Name them. I go first so I can get it over with. I play something simple, something that matters to me, not something impressive. And if I freeze up or need to stop, everyone has to be okay with that. Done. All of it. Absolutely. She could hear the smile in Derek's voice. Maya, I'm really proud of you. Don't be proud yet. I might still change my mind about 50 times before then. She did change her mind. 50 times was probably an underestimate. One day she was certain she could do it. The next day she was sure she'd made a terrible mistake. Her sister called to check in, and Maya told her about the decision. Are you doing this for you or for them? Lisa asked. For me, Maya said, surprised by how sure she sounded. I want to see if I can do it differently this time. Without all the weight. Then I think you should try. And Maya, if you freeze again, so what? You walk off stage and you survive just like last time. You've already survived the worst version of this. Her sister was right. The worst had already happened and she'd made it through. What was the worst that could happen now? She'd freeze, she'd leave the stage, and she'd still have her private sessions with the piano. She'd still have the quiet conversations with herself through music. The night before the performance, Maya couldn't sleep. She lay in bed, her mind racing through every possible disaster. But underneath the anxiety was something else, something she hadn't felt in years. Excitement, she was excited to play. Nervous, yes. Terrified, absolutely. But also genuinely excited to share something she'd created, to let people hear this simple folk song that reminded her of her grandmother's kitchen and Sunday afternoons before life got complicated. The day of the piano night arrived. Maya wore jeans and a comfortable sweater, nothing fancy. She showed up an hour early. Mr. Patterson was there setting up extra chairs because Derek had promoted the event and more people than usual were expected. "You ready for this?" Mr. Patterson asked. "I have no idea," Maya admitted. "That's the best answer you could give. Means you're being honest with yourself." Derek arrived shortly after, carrying boxes of cookies someone had donated. When he saw Maya, he set the boxes down and walked over. "How are you feeling?" "Like I might throw up." "That's normal," he smiled gently. "Remember, you can change your mind right up until you sit down at that piano. Even after. Nobody will judge you." Maya nodded, her hands shaking slightly. "I know, but I think I want to try." People started arriving. The room filled with the usual crowd plus some new faces. Maya recognized the jazz woman, the teenager with the guitar, several other regulars. They were all smiling, chatting, excited for an evening of piano music. At 7 o'clock sharp, Derek took the microphone. "Welcome to our first ever all-piano night. We've got some wonderful performers lined up, but first I want to introduce someone very special. She's coming back to piano after a long break, and we're honored she chose our little community center for her return. Please welcome Maya." The audience clapped warmly. Maya stood up, her legs feeling like water. She walked to the stage, climbed the 3 steps, and sat down at the upright piano that had become her friend over these past few months. She looked out at the audience. 40 or 50 faces looking back at her, waiting, patient, not judging, just listening. She placed her hands on the keys, and then Maya began to play. The first notes came out softer than Maya intended. Her hands were shaking, and she could feel her heart pounding so hard she was sure the audience could hear it. But she kept playing. The folk song was simple, just a melody her grandmother used to hum while making bread on Sunday mornings. Maya had arranged it herself during one of her private sessions, adding harmonies that felt right, that felt like home. 3 measures in, her left hand hit the wrong note, a sharp instead of a natural, the kind of mistake that would have devastated her 8 years ago, that would have made her teacher shake her head in disappointment. Maya paused for just a second. She could feel the familiar panic starting to rise in her chest, the old instinct to run, but then she looked up and saw Mr. Patterson in the 3rd row, nodding encouragingly. She saw Derek standing by the sound booth, his expression full of support, not judgment. She took a breath, smiled slightly, and kept playing. The wrong note didn't matter. The song continued. The melody still sounded like her grandmother's kitchen, still felt like Sunday mornings when piano was just something fun she did, not something that defined her worth. As she played, something shifted inside Maya. Her shoulders relaxed, her breathing steadied. She stopped thinking about the audience and started thinking about the music itself, about what Mr. Patterson had said. This was a conversation. She was telling a story about a grandmother who'd loved her unconditionally, about a time before pressure and expectations, about finding her way back to something that used to bring her joy. The audience wasn't judging her. They were just listening. When she reached the final measures, Maya added something she hadn't planned. A small variation on the melody, something that came from instinct rather than practice. It wasn't perfect, but it was honest. It was hers. The last note faded into silence. For a moment, nobody moved. Then the applause started, warm and genuine and completely different from the polite clapping she remembered from competition halls. This applause felt like a hug. Maya stood up from the piano bench, her legs still shaky, and saw that several people in the audience were smiling with tears in their eyes. The jazz woman was clapping enthusiastically. The teenager gave her a thumbs up. Mr. Patterson was nodding like he'd known all along she could do it. She walked off the stage and sat down in the front row, her whole body buzzing with adrenaline and relief, and something that felt startlingly like happiness. Derek squeezed her shoulder as he passed to introduce the next performer. "You were beautiful," he whispered. The evening continued with other pianists performing. Some played classical pieces, others played pop songs. One person even played an original composition about their cat. Each performance was different, each person bringing their own story to the keys. Maya watched them all, feeling like she was part of something instead of separate from it. She wasn't the girl who'd frozen on stage anymore. She wasn't the failed prodigy, or the daughter who'd disappointed everyone. She was just someone who played piano and was figuring out what that meant for her now. After the last performer finished, people mingled and talked over coffee and cookies. Several strangers came up to Maya to tell her they'd loved her song, that it had moved them, that it reminded them of their own grandmothers or childhood homes. A woman in her 60s approached with tears still on her cheeks. "I quit piano after my husband died 3 years ago. He used to love listening to me play. Tonight, watching you up there, seeing how nervous you were but doing it anyway, it made me think maybe I could try again." Maya felt her own tears starting. "You should, but only if it's for you." "That's exactly right," the woman said, squeezing Maya's hand. "Thank you for reminding me." As people started to leave, Maya helped Derek and Mr. Patterson clean up. They stacked chairs, threw away paper cups, wiped down tables. The physical work felt grounding after the emotional intensity of performing. "So," Derek said as they worked, "how do you feel?" Maya thought about it. Proud, scared, relieved, all of it at once. "That sounds about right." Derek picked up a stack of chairs. "Are you glad you did it?" "Yeah," Maya said, surprised by how true it was. "I really am." Mr. Patterson locked up the piano and patted it like an old friend. "You two did good tonight." "Both of you." Maya for being brave, Derek for creating a space where being brave feels possible. After they finished cleaning, Maya walked to her car alone. The night air was cool and she could see stars between the streetlights. She sat in the driver's seat for a few minutes before starting the engine, just processing everything that had happened. She'd done it. She'd performed in front of people, made a mistake, and kept going. The world hadn't ended. Nobody had judged her harshly. In fact, she'd connected with people, moved them, maybe even inspired someone to return to music themselves. Maya drove home with the windows down, letting the cool air clear her head. When she got to her apartment, she called her sister. "How did it go?" Lisa answered immediately, like she'd been waiting by the phone. "I did it. I actually did it. And I made a mistake in the middle." "Hit the wrong note. What happened?" Maya smiled. "I kept playing. And it was okay. It was more than okay." She could hear Lisa crying on the other end. "I'm so proud of you, Maya, so proud." "Thanks. That means a lot." Maya paused. "I think I might be ready to come home for Thanksgiving." "To see Mom and Dad, really? Are you sure?" "I think so. I'm not the same person who left 7 years ago. I want them to see that. I want to see them without all that weight between us." They talked for another hour, making plans, talking about family, about healing, about the long road Maya had walked to get to this point. When they finally hung up, Maya felt exhausted but peaceful. Over the next few weeks, something unexpected happened. People started asking Maya to teach them piano. Parents wanted lessons for their children. Adults wanted to learn for the first time or return after years away. The community center offered her a small room to teach in twice a week. Maya said yes, but only on her terms. Her lessons weren't about preparing students for competitions or pushing them toward professional careers. They were about finding joy in music, about expression instead of perfection, about having conversations through sound. Her first student was a 7-year-old girl named Zoe, who was bouncy and enthusiastic, and couldn't sit still for more than 5 minutes. In another life, Maya might have been frustrated by her lack of focus, but now she saw a kid who loved music without any pressure attached to it, and she was determined to keep it that way. "What do you want to learn?" Maya asked during their first lesson. "Everything," Zoe said, "but especially that song from the movie about the Ice Princess." Maya laughed. "We can definitely work on that. But first, let me teach you something my grandmother taught me." She showed Zoe the simple folk melody she'd played at the open mic night. They worked through it together, Zoe making mistakes constantly but giggling through them all. When she finally played the whole thing through with wrong notes and uneven tempo and absolutely no technical perfection, she looked up at Maya with pure joy. "I did it." "You did," Maya said, her heart full. "You really did." As weeks turned into months, Maya continued her own private practice sessions, kept playing at occasional open mic nights, and built a small community of students who were learning that music could be playful and healing instead of stressful. Derek became a close friend. They'd get coffee and talk about their weeks, about the people who'd performed, about Maya's students. He told her about his brother Tyler coming to visit and playing in a recreational softball game without any pressure. They talked about how society puts so much weight on natural talent, making people feel like they have to turn every skill into a career. "You know what I think?" Derek said one afternoon over coffee. "I think we're sold this lie that if you're good at something, you have to optimize it, monetize it, make it your whole identity. But some things can just be for joy." "Exactly," Maya agreed. "Piano can be my job, but it doesn't have to be my entire life. It can be something I do because I love it, that I share with others who want to learn, without all the pressure of being the best." 6 months after her first performance at the open mic night, Maya returned to her hometown for a visit. Her parents had been cautious in their conversations, afraid to push too hard or say the wrong thing. But when she walked into her childhood home, her mother hugged her tight. "We're sorry," her mom said, "for all the pressure, for not seeing what it was doing to you." "I know," Maya said. "I'm sorry too for shutting you out for so long." Her father showed her something in the garage, her old keyboard, the one she'd sold 7 years ago. "I bought it back from the guy you sold it to, just in case you ever wanted it." Maya felt tears spill down her cheeks. She set it up in the living room and played that same folk song, the one about her grandmother. Her parents sat on the couch listening, not with the critical ears of people evaluating a performance, but with the grateful hearts of people who'd missed hearing their daughter play. When she finished, her father said quietly, "That was beautiful. I'd forgotten how much I loved listening to you play." "I'd forgotten too," Maya admitted. Back in her college town, Maya kept teaching, kept learning, kept growing. She never competed again, never pursued that professional career everyone had imagined for her. Instead, she finished her library science degree and eventually got a job at the university library. Piano remained important, but it wasn't everything. It was a part of her life, a beautiful part, but not the only part. One Thursday evening, a year after her first performance, Maya sat at that same upright piano at the community center. The room was full of familiar faces. She'd chosen a more challenging piece this time, something she'd loved as a teenager but had never felt free enough to enjoy. Her fingers moved across the keys with confidence she'd earned through patience and healing. She made mistakes, just like always, but they didn't stop her anymore. They were just part of the conversation, part of being human, part of creating something real instead of something perfect. As the final notes faded away, Maya realized something profound. Winning wasn't about trophies or recognition or being the best. Winning was sitting at this piano, in this imperfect community center, playing for people who cared about authenticity more than perfection. Winning was finding her way back to music on her own terms, discovering that her worth wasn't tied to how well she performed, and learning that sometimes the bravest thing you can do is start over. The same fingers that once won a national award now played for something infinitely more valuable: joy, connection, and the simple pleasure of making music because she wanted to, not because anyone told her she had to. That was the real victory, and it felt more meaningful than any award ever could.